Everyone, my name is Maria Seniw. I'm the Director of Development at the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution, and we are really excited to be launching our, I think it is 5th Peace Week, Spring Peace Week 2023, and the theme is What Works? Building Peace at Home and in the World in Challenging Times. This session is being recorded so that we can share it in the future with wider audiences, but really excited to welcome our partners from the Shinnyo-en Foundation and all of the Shinnyo Fellows for this roundtable discussion on your experiences with the fellowship to date. And it's my pleasure to introduce Dean Alpaslan Özerdem of the Carter School for Peace and, Jay Gibson, Vice President of the Shinnyo-en Fellowship, our Shinnyo-en Foundation, our distinguished guest. Jay?
But I do want to thank everybody at George Mason University for organizing and facilitating this panel discussion today. My name is Jay Gibson, and I am currently serving as the Vice President of the Shinnyo-en Foundation, and I'm also the Temple Manager of the Shinnyo-en Los Angeles Buddhist Temple. The foundation is the secular or philanthropic arm of the Shinnyo-en Buddhist order. And our mission is to promote global peace through service by nurturing future generations. And our focus areas are youth leadership development, service learning, social emotional learning, and interfaith collaboration. Our partnership with George Mason University began in 2008 as our 4th university partner, along with Stanford University, UC Berkeley, Seattle University. And recently, we have also added Chapman University to our group of partners. And the characteristics of promoting peace building in higher education is well aligned with the foundation's values and principles. And that was one of the things that drew us to partner with George Mason University. The Shinnyo Fellows program is named after a Buddhist term, Shinnyo, which is also included in the name of the order. And translated, that roughly means the fundamental nature of all things, or it refers to the truth, a truth that is unchanging and everlasting. And the Shinnyo Fellows are expected to discover that innate goodness that exists within themselves, and also to elevate and sustain their positive human qualities, such as loving kindness and compassion, sincerity, regardless of the circumstances that they find themselves in. I am looking forward to hearing from our current Shinnyo Fellows. And I'm excited to be here today, and I want to thank everyone for taking time out to join us. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. And now I will introduce again Alpaslan Özerdem, Dean of the Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution. It's a little habit, but I will let him take over now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. Good morning, good afternoon, and in fact, I should also say good evening, because I know some people are joining us from much earlier time zones, and that's really great. And Maria, thanks very much for double introductions, and that's what deans require. You see, you know, they cannot just speak with one introduction; they need 2 of that. And well, Jay, thank you so much for those initial comments, much appreciated. And I want to in fact start by thanking Shinnyo-en Foundation for their support to GMU, and also for to the Carter School since 2008. You provided support to 19 graduate students and 7 post-undergraduate students here. And that has been a fundamental transformational experience for our students. I've been the dean of the school for 4 years now, and I met a number of our Shinnyo-en Foundation fellows. And each time I talk to them and the conversation about their experience, it's just like a experience, what this fellowship provides to them as an opportunity is so fundamentally groundbreaking and just so impactful. We value it so much, and thank you so much to Shinnyo Foundation, making us being part of this amazing journey since 2008. That's been really great. And I just want to kind of say a few words about my school and how this fellowship really fits in our overall vision. And I think that kind of gives a better idea, why we value it so much. So the Carter School has just celebrated its 40th anniversary. We started as a kind of small center in the early 1980s, and there was a kind of evolution in terms of like a center turning into an institute and a school. And 2 years ago, we done the renaming of our school, and we now have the names of two greatest peacemakers of our times, Jimmy and Rosalind Carter. And with that, with our vision being the oldest and most likely the largest school of conflict resolution, and in kind of our unique kind of position here at the George Mason University, being one of the 10 colleges, gives us the kind of like the unique opportunity of engaging our students at the undergraduate, master's, and PhD levels. And within that, though, I mean, I think our mission is to make sure that our students are part of our lives in all means. So, for example, some of the peace labs we funded over the last couple of years are either student-led, or they kind of take really direct engagement in those activities. And with the Shinnyo-en Fellowship, why that matters to us, to the Carter School. I believe that it really gives them the opportunity of honing their research skills, really kind of like working on projects that creates that opportunity for innovation and creativity. It also gives the opportunity for engaging with real life environments, like kind of like working with organizations in our field. That internship, that engagement, really increases their readiness for employment and the kind of the post-education life. And also it allows them to build their networks and circles of conflict resolution. So this is why it's been really transformational for our students. Thank you so much for being part of our journey here at the Carter School. And then we would look forward to continuing our partnership with Shinnyo-en Foundation. So with that note, considering that this meeting is really for our fellows to discuss their experiences, and also I know there are a few prospective students here so that they can learn what it's all about, why I've been talking about this fellowship so enthusiastically, so they can get a better idea. And we can hear from the fellows themselves. I'd like to introduce Dr. Mara Shoni. She's the director of our undergraduate programs, and she will be facilitating our discussions this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, and to everybody beforehand for all the pieces that we're hearing about that need to come together so that we can have the Shinnyo Fellows at the various colleges where they're at. So thank you, Jay, thank you, Alp, and thank you, Maria, for getting us together today. So just as I'm starting, so the plan is to hear from the various fellows. They've had some prep in advance, but I'm seeing some notes, and I'm wondering if we could do a quick roundup and identify who are the fellows who were able to make it today. Amanda, I see you are here.
We have, I know 2 of them aren't able to make it. One of them is logging in, and they're saying they're having some technical difficulties.
Okay.
They should hopefully be in soon.
Okay. Well, so let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and start, Amanda, if you're willing, with you, if you could. So I think since you're the first one here, if you could introduce yourself and let us know, tell us obviously what university you're from, but also tell us a little bit about the placement. Where is it that you're doing your fellowship for this semester? And then I'll keep an eye out and we'll catch up as other people come in.
Sounds good. Well, my name is Amanda Pena. I graduated from the Carter School last May with obviously a degree in conflict analysis resolution. With this fellowship, I am currently working at one foundation under two sister, or within that there are two sister organizations. So one of them is the Mary Hoke Center for Reconciliation, and it's a student-led research center within the Carter School. And there I am the communications manager, so I'm posting all about all of our things on social media. And I'm also a part of our biggest research project that we're working on now, and we call that the Insider Reconciler project. So we are interviewing people from around the world about how they conduct reconciliation practices within their own communities. But also we're taking that and we're asking them, how are they taking care of their well-being while doing this work? Because we find that a lot of times, especially within peace building, they're either experiencing trauma themselves or they're experiencing secondhand trauma from hearing the stories of those who are within the communities that they are helping in. And I'm also working at Think Peace Learning and Support Hub, and that is the practicing organization. So they do reconciliation practices there. We have Truth Commission experts on our team or on staff, and they have initiatives going in a few areas in the United States. Right now, I am working on the annual report for Think Peace with two other colleagues. And I'm also working on this co-creation workshop course that is mostly directed toward funders. But the point of it is it's an inquiry-based workshop, if you will, that touches on stress, well-being, and trying to understand the body when it's experiencing trauma. But it's directed toward funders. We find that a lot of humanitarian aid workers experience stress, trauma, etc. And the stress that they receive from funders doesn't really quite help with their own well-being. So we are addressing this course toward the funders and saying, hey, listen, let's try to, how do I phrase this? Let's try to understand each other and make sure everyone gets what they need and what they want. But let's do it in a way where it's a healthy interaction and it's one that does not cause any more distress on another individual.
Thank you. I think what I'm going to do, I don't see any of the other fellows who've been able to log in yet. So I'm going to ask you, Amanda, the sort of one of the first questions. And so we're going to hear from you for a little bit, and then I'm going to open it up to people who are here. And I'm going to ask you some of the questions and give people in the room a chance to respond, to think about infinite paths to peace, and thinking about some of the ideas from the Shinnyo Foundation that Jay has introduced us to. And you've come here today hoping to hear a little bit about the Shinnyo Fellows. So I want to give you a chance to talk as well. If you have questions, I'll open that up in just a minute. You can drop them in the chat room and we'll get to them when you can, if you're afraid that you'll forget, but I'll give you a chance to raise your hand in a little bit as well. So Amanda, I wonder if we could hear a little bit more from you about, thank you for telling about all of this amazing work. And I have a feeling people might want to ask you some questions about that. One of the purposes of the fellowship, and that the foundation has a challenge and a hand extended from the Shinnyo Foundation, has been to be reflective and to be able to have the space and the time over the course of a year to consider personal pathways to peace. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what you're discovering so far on this pathway to peace that you set out on this year.
Thank you. I found that it's a full circle moment for me, I think. I originally got interested in peace building in high school when we had met. My class had met one of the last Americans to stay in Rwanda during genocide, and he was housing people during the violence. And he, I don't know, he explained his talk was less on what had happened, but and more on rebuilding the community afterwards. And then it hit me how important that really was. He had said that he had brought students over, and his students were hugging the people that he saw hurt their own neighbors. And he was explaining that he got mad. He was like, I don't understand why they're touching. Why are they even in the same space as them? And then it hit him, they're different individuals. Our environments help shape who we are. So in that moment, I was like, oh, reconciliation, rebuilding the community, that type of work. And within that talk, he had said, be a ripple of change. You can be one small ripple in the pond, but your action may influence others to do the same. And the Shinnyo-en Foundation, they also talk about being a ripple of change. So to me, it was a very full circle moment. I'm doing work that I am especially interested in. I am doing the work that made me interested in peace building to begin with. And I didn't really imagine that happening so soon. So yes, I think it's been a full circle moment. And it's been really cool to see how I've grown from when I first heard this story of this individual's experience till now. Yeah, so it's been a really enriching experience so far.
Nice. I'm going to leave you in the hot seat for a couple more questions. So I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about how you're making that connection to the community that you're serving. So service is one of the pillars, and clearly you're performing great service for the Mary Hoke Center and for the various foundations and projects you're working on. So I wonder if you could say a little bit more about your own, sort of your own orientation in this and the connections that you're making to the communities that you're serving.
So between the two organizations, I find that the work we're doing is a bit more international. However, the stuff I've been learning throughout my time, I have been applying to my own spaces. Outside of this fellowship, I coach volleyball, and I've been coaching for 5 years now. And it's been really interesting to hear how can we learn about the skills of how to take care of our own well-being. And I'm automatically making the connection of, oh, I can do this when I'm coaching these young athletes. The people I work with for this pilot course, they joke and they say, you're a pre-pilot person, because I'll share my connections. I'm like, oh, we're talking about burnout, or we're talking about organizational conflict and how to address certain conflicts in different settings, or what best ways to interact with others while keeping their well-being in mind. And I'll share them, oh, this happened in volleyball, this happened at practice. And we can recognize the different spaces and be able to bring people together that way.
So sometimes it's connecting through the difficulty that you shared.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, for sure.
Nice. So I see some more folks who've joined us from the current fellows. So I wonder if I could ask you to anyone who's joined us. So just where we're at, so we did some initial introductions, and then from the hosts for this gathering, and Amanda, who's from George Mason University. So we've just started talking with her a little bit. So I wonder if, let's see, Oscar, maybe Oscar first, and then Jackson, if you could introduce yourselves. Just let us know your name, what's your university, and tell us a little bit about your site placement. Where is it that you're doing your fellowship?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. For us in the West Coast, it's the morning. Hi, everybody. My name is Oscar Garcia Valadez. I am the UC Berkeley Fellow. The work that I do is part of a little, I guess, partnership between UC Berkeley, Berkeley City College, and Berkeley High School. And the partnership between there is where we do college access work. So specifically how we're tackling that is we're doing dual enrollment, which is when high school students are also enrolled in college classes. So they're both being a high school, but also, getting a head start on some college classes. So maybe we've heard of like IB, so International Baccalaureate, or AP, Advanced Placement. But this is kind of a new pathway that here in California, we're trying to push. So that's kind of like a little bit of the general overview of like what I do, but also what's going on in California with education and how my role plays into that. So yeah.
Thank you, Oscar. Jackson, what about you?
Hey everyone, I'm Jackson. I'm an undergrad fellow at Seattle University. And so as part of the fellowship this year, I've been working with the CLES farm, which is an urban farm located in the middle of Seattle. It's actually 1.5 acres next to the I-90 highway. And so that's been really cool. I've been on the farm work, but also doing advertising as well for school and for the local community as well.
That's exciting. Anything already coming in yet? Or is it too early yet?
Well, now that spring is sprung, we're getting a lot of crops coming in. And also we have volunteer opportunities every week too. So we're getting a lot more people as well. So it's a really busy time for the farm. Very cool to see though.
Excellent. So I'm going to ask you both just the initial questions that Amanda started off with. And so the first one is that, as you know, the Shinnyo-en Fellowship asks you to think about your personal pathway to peace. And that part of what the fellowship year is about is being able to be reflective and to have some space and time to think about your personal pathways. So I wonder if you could each take a moment to tell us a little bit about your personal pathway to peace this year. What are you finding on your path?
I can start off. I would say for me, in the beginning of this fellowship, I think I had a very narrow idea of what I want my path to peace to look like. I think before this fellowship, I come from a low income, first gen, Latinx background. And so for me, when I was going to college, the main reason was to, have a better job, have a better life, kind of think about that very linearly. And so before that fellowship, that was kind of like still my notion of what I wanted to do. And through this fellowship, and even till this day that I'm like talking about it, I've realized, but also have practiced, that my path to peace is ever changing, it's ever evolving. I think that for me, my path to peace has shown me that there's not one way to stick with your path to peace, and that there's not a necessary sort of there's not this sort of urge or persistence that's kind of keeping you to that but yourself, and so there's, at any point you can change that, at any point you can shift that. And so for me, what that has looked like in practice is I've always wanted to work with high schoolers, and so this fellowship has kind of confirmed that, but it's also confirmed that I wanted to work with older populations, with college students. It also has confirmed that I wanted to work in other capacities with students, so with youth development, outside of just education, so maybe thinking more broadly of a holistic way to support students is what I'm trying to do. So that's definitely like kind of connected to my path to peace. And even broader has been like part of the shift in general understanding of what my path to peace is, and also understanding that can change too. So that's like a little bit of what I've learned so far, but yeah.
Jackson, what about you? Can you tell us a little bit about reflect on your personal pathway to peace and what you've been discovering?
Yeah, so I actually had a very similar discovery as well. I think my main discovery is that my path to peace isn't just one thing, that isn't like, and that it isn't rich, you know, it will be changing, and it already has so many different times. Like I remember when this year started, I had kind of like a more like grandiose kind of path to peace, or like I didn't actually even really know what it meant, honestly, because I just hadn't done any work yet. And of course, like I believe my path to peace was about like education, giving people opportunities, but that I don't really know what that meant for me because I hadn't really worked with it yet. It sounded nice and like, you know, the idea of it, but I hadn't actually worked through it, right? So as I actually went through this year, I found that like my path to peace would change and like, you know, kind of mold to like the work I was doing, right? And so I actually learned a lot about myself and how I like envision the work I want to do. So example, like down at the farm, we have a very small team, right? But I realized I actually really enjoy working with a small, tight-knit team, and working with like you know, like the community as well, and these volunteer opportunities. Because every week we have volunteers come in, right, and to help them out, it's just like really fun. Something I actually wasn't expecting I would enjoy as much as I do. So like now my path to peace is actually a few different things, right? It's like there's a few different pathways, and a part of that is like, you know, working with this like kind of this small nonprofit, right, and making like, you know, small change in this urban setting, right, which is just something again I didn't expect. So yeah, this has been like still doing a self discovery for me and figuring out what like I want, and how I think I can, you know, help others in my path to peace. So that's just been a really cool time for me. I guess yeah, that's just it. I suppose my path to peace now, it's still about like access, because I want to give people access like to, you know, resources like at the farm, but it's also about like education as well. We do a lot of like a lot of education on like food sustainability, and like, you know, the importance of knowing where your food comes from, as well as just having opportunities to like, you know, be like in like, you know, in a farm like in the middle of a city, right? That's just a really wonderful opportunity that, you know, I hope more can experience, and by me being there, I hope I can help, you know, others like know about it and experience that too.
Nice. Can you tell us each a little bit about, and Jackson, why don't we start with you this time, that as you're following your own rethinking about what peace means and your own personal path towards this, can you say a little bit about how that's creating connection with the community that you serve, that where you're seeing the peace connection and the connection to the community that you're with?
Yeah, so I can start here. So I think I'm seeing this connection as in a way where like my path to peace is also like it is like molding with let's say you know, the goal of the S farm, right, and like their mission. Just because since I've been working with them, I've been like, you know, learning about like what they want to do, right, and like how they've done things. I've been saying, oh, you know, this is actually working out really well. I should you know, incorporate this, or also they would like me to do this, and actually this makes more sense than what I want to do, right? So you know, in that kind of changing of ideas, I've learned a lot from them, and I hope they've learned a lot from me. I think they learned a little bit, but we've been exchanging ideas in that way, and that's been like, you know, affecting my path to peace, because the people at the farm have been doing it for a lot longer than I have, right? So I've been able to just kind of get that experience and like really let that affect my path to peace. And I think so far it has, because it's been changing so often. You know, I think I've just really been getting a better idea of you know, how I can help and how what the farm needs. So that's been really exciting for me.
Now, that's a lovely idea of connection, that part of the connection is that you're learning from them, and that you're actually entering into what they care about, and that becomes part of what you care about.
Right.
Well, that's a lovely definition. I like that. Oscar, what could you say about your path to peace and the connection that you have with those that you're serving? And we can't hear you. I think you're still muted.
Sorry
There you
about
go.
that. So I would say for me, my path to peace and how it's connected to my community. So I mentioned earlier some of the identities that I hold as being first gen, low income, Latinx. Part of that has been the way that I've connected with my community. You know, this background, it's intersectional, but this intersectional background has really allowed me to use that as a window to open connection with students. So I'll be like, you know, I'll be like, oh, what you know about dual enrollment? Or I'll be like, oh, what you know about this you know, we got a trip about like career plan, an assignment about career planning. We'll be like, what you know about this career planning? You want to be a therapist? Okay, like you're gonna be my therapist when you get older. Okay, I'm gonna look for you. So like stuff like that has just been like little ways that I connect with students, you know, and like just to get them to be seen as the things that they want to be, you know. And a lot of the students that I also work in embedded classroom support. So I support 2 classes at this time. I support a class of 50 to 60 high school students in County 57, which is career and life planning at BCC, offered to high schoolers. And I also support Education 1, which is introduction to education. And I believe there's about 10 students in that class. I interact more with the County 57 class, the bigger class with about 50 to 60 students. And so a lot of those students in there hold very similar identities to mine. And so I've noticed, you know, in the beginning of the semester, you know, they'll be shy, or I'll like, you know, make an effort to connect with them and they'll be like, yeah, it's cool, yeah. But then like, you know, as the semester goes on, you'll see that, you know, crack open up even more. And that is just like where the sweet spot is to like hit students, like where they can like open up, you know? And once they start talking to you, like that's a win for me, you know. And that's how you build that connection as you move forward, you know. Even after the class, you're like, hey, how's that, you know, path to being a therapist going? How's that path to being a biology teacher going? How's that path to being an engineer going, you know? So really also following their goals even after the time that you have set with them, you know, has really been another way that I connect with students, is understanding that they are being listened to and someone is out there rooting for them, you know, even after they finish a class, which they thought, after this class, I'm never going to see them again, you know? Um, and so that's just one of the ways that I hope that I can foster community. And similar to Jackson, I just hope that they, you know, that they are responsive to it as well. And another way that I foster community is one of the things that I've always wanted to do is to, you know, take a step up in some of the things that I've done in college. So some of the things I did in college were like recruitment, retention of like Latinx students. And so doing that now, that was like, doing this fellowship now, that was an opportunity that I wanted to cultivate, right? You know, being a college advising or club advising, something like that, right? And so then I was brought this opportunity to advise a dual enrolled student club, which is the first club ever at BCC for high school students that are also taking college classes. And so I serve as the advisor for this club, and I have been since August or September. And so that has been another way that I've cultivated community, because it's a way for me to also work with the leaders of tomorrow, you know? So I'm also hoping to, you know, pass down some of the things that I learned when I was in college, like to plan events or to get people to come or to, you know, do intentional outreach with this group or this group or this group, you know? So like kind of teaching those skills as well with these, you know, club leaders that are hoping to do this work when I'm away. You know, I'm not going to be here forever. So, you know, when I step out of this advisor role, I just hope that the people that are taking charge of this club are able to do that without me. So really hoping to like, I guess have a sustainable, you know, club structure. That's what we're trying to work on too, as its first year in existence. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Nice. So I hear 2 things there. It's both the personal, the one-on-one, the ability to make that seeing another person individually, but then also the structures, the things that then can hold people together. So Amanda, you had already answered that question. So I'm going to give the 3 of you a fresh question. And if you see anyone else, or if anyone here knows the other fellows, if you see someone else join, just maybe give me a heads up that there's somebody else here. So for the three of you, and you can tell me who wants to go first in just a second, you know that this week the Carter School is having a Peace Week, and the particular theme for this Peace Week is examining what works in peace building, especially in difficult times. And so that's the theme of all the variety of sessions that we've been doing. And so we've got a chance to learn from you right now. So I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what do you see as the biggest challenges that we're facing collectively? And then what are some of the ways we can overcome them? So 2 parts to this question. What do you see as the biggest challenges? What are the challenges of these challenging times? And what can we do to overcome them? Anyone want to go first?
Most likely it's communication with others.
Yeah.
And Kurt, I'm gonna add just hold off for just a moment from the audience. I'm gonna ask if we could hear from our fellows, our Shinnyo Fellows first for this question. I'm gonna open it up for questions and comments in just a moment. I see you've unmuted, Amanda. So you're gonna take us on first.
I guess so.
Thank you.
I was gonna say the same thing. I think it's a lack of clear communication. I think communication is being had. Right now, I'm referring to like the polarization in the country, and yes, communication is being had, but not the correct kind, not clear enough for individuals to actually hear each other, I think. And it's also a very set in each other's ways. Everyone has interests, wants, and needs they want their wants, needs, and interests to be met always. But from my experience, or what I've seen, it's no one listening. You don't have that radical listening being in place. And I know it's hard to do because not many people want to listen to other people who don't share the same beliefs and ideas as they do. But once you sit and you intentionally ask questions to genuinely get to know the thinking behind the reasoning or their actions, things may change. And I know it's also really hard to say, or it's a lot easier to say than actually do. But I do believe that good things will happen with the radical listening.
Thank you. So both naming a challenge and naming what we might be able to do about it. Oscar or Jackson, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I can go next. I would say for me that in our society, we really have such a hard time viewing people as, multifaceted people, as people that are ever changing, ever evolving. I think once we have an impression of people, we stick with that and we don't, move away from that, feeling or memory. We expect people to be, the same as we remember them or as we saw them last. And so for me, I feel like that's a limiting way of viewing people. And so I think for me, what we have to do is kind of take a step back and really see all the different intersectionalities, all the different identities that we hold that intersect with one another. So in understanding that different combination really affects the way that you move in this world, in this society. And I don't think that it should have to be like that. And I don't think that our systems are set up in a way to represent all of the diverse identities that each person holds, and viewing them as a holistic person. And so for me, I guess that being said, I noticed that like when I work with students, a lot of times colleagues or peers will ask, how's this assignment going? How's that assignment going? But they don't realize that, oh, this student hasn't eaten in the past 2 days. Maybe we should get them like a food, like a meal or something to figure out like what their next step is going to be, because they can't focus because what's on their mind is I haven't eaten in the past 2 days. They're not going to worry about an assignment that probably takes 10, 15 minutes, or something. And so for me, that's just kind of a little bit of like an example of how that challenge comes up. And I would say in terms of like solving this, I would say really thinking about our systems and thinking about how we can, you know, have them view our students as what I mentioned, as multifaceted people, not really having these bureaucratic systems in place to say, you need to, you know, fill this column out or this column out, this column out. And if you don't fill those three, well, you don't qualify for X. And it's like, well, things aren't that black and white in our world, you know, things change, things are gray all the time, you know, so what about the people that fall in the gray area? We're missing them, you know? So I think that for me, that's kind of a little bit of what I see the challenge in being, and in the solution, I would think definitely like shifting our mindset, shifting our perspective on people, and really just understanding that there has to be a more holistic way of viewing people when we think about education, when we think about social work, when we think about anything that has to work with people. Even this as a panel, I would say would qualify, you know, always thinking about all the different, you know, parts that come to each person, making them the whole person that they are in this moment, you know, and tomorrow, 5 years, that might change. So always keeping your head and mind open to those changes being received also. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Oscar. So we've heard, so communication and radical listening, and this idea of that fracturing people into bits, and that we need the holistic approach and the ability to change how we see people. So thank you both. So we've had two. So Jackson, you've had a little bit of time to think. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what are you seeing as the challenges that we're facing in challenging times, and what's the peace building approach? What might we be able to do?
Right. So I've had some time to like think of a few like ideas, those are in my head. I think I can say one of the biggest problems I'm seeing today is kind of a lack of that greater community. I think a lot of people are just isolated, especially because of the pandemic. You know, a lot of people are just pushed into their own little, like, you know, their own little corners, and you know, just giving time to like just be by themselves is for way too long, right? During the pandemic, actually, I worked as a ambassador for our Center for Community Engagement, right? So I was putting like events and stuff for students. No, those are virtual, of course, because we're online. But I remember like our turnout was never like that impressive. And like a lot, but the students who did show up, they really talked about how they appreciated having like, you know, just a small spaces to like see other students, right? Because besides the classroom setting, this would be the only space where they actually interact with others outside their family, right? And so I was just kind of like, wow, I guess, you know, that's true, because it was the same for me, but I didn't really realize it. But yeah, a lot of people like at that time really weren't really getting to see other students. And I think that isolation is what makes people like less receptive to this, you know, to a lot of things, honestly. Like even coming back this year, you know, it's just seen a really big change in like the student population, myself included, where like I have to push myself harder to like, you know, get out of my zone and to do more things that like I would have been totally up for doing, like let's say freshman year or sophomore year when those were in person, right? So yeah, I've just been thinking that's been affecting a lot of people in a really tough way. And it also kind of goes up to my next point, which is like there really isn't like I feel like we're not pushed to accept the ideas of others and like admit being wrong, right? A lot of times people will like I see people will, you know, they'll double down on a point, or they'll try to like, you know, try to beat the other person in like in a debate just to be right. But I think people aren't willing to you know, slow down and like be wrong as much, right? Or admit like that they had the wrong idea. I think that comes with like, you know, not wanting to understand that the other person, but like you know, being in your own zone and not wanting to move, right? And while it's not like the same thing, I think that can be a part of you know, when you are isolated, you just really solidify in your ideas, right? I think yeah, we all just kind of like take some extra time to just really understand what people are saying, and like listen to understand versus listening to like, you know, beat them, right? Like I don't think everything to be a debate. I think we can genuinely learn a lot from a lot of people. I think, you know, that is really what we need to do right now, just understanding and you know, like listening with, you know, our whole heart, right? Not just with our ears.
Nice, thank you. I have one more question for our panelists. So that is, we're getting to hear from them on this year-long experience that they're all engaged with, or 9 months, or maybe a year. So this is the last question. I wonder, and this, I think this continues maybe this note of what can we do about the challenges that we're seeing, but it focuses particularly on the idea of community connection and our abilities, unique abilities to address the challenges that you outlined. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about your sense of how can we combine this sense of community, the community connection, with the abilities that we do have that we may not be using, or the abilities that you've discovered that you have to address these challenges. See some thoughtful thinking. And maybe we can personalize it a little bit and think about what are the abilities that you've discovered? What have you realized that you can do that's at this intersection of community and in the intersection of community connection and the very real challenges?
I think it starts with relationships and really putting in the effort into the communal relationships. For me personally, I grew up in a family where it was heavily emphasized. You need to work on relationships with other people. And with those that you value and you really want to keep, you have to keep them. But then it's also, my family has an open door policy. Whoever needs help, will help them out. And I found that you're building connection that way. It could be you just giving them a plate of food and saying, oh, here, come sit down, come listen, come talk to us. I've had a lot of relationships start off that way, and I've seen our relationships start off that way. And it's become something so magical as the years go on. And I find, well, food is, from my experience, has helped a lot. If you ask somebody to sit down with you and just have this conversation, it's a lot easier to talk about more contentious topics, I think, because you're leveling out the playing field. You and this other person are doing the same thing. Same if you're walking. I remember learning one of my conflict courses, if you're walking right next to each other, people are more likely to have really good conversations, really good discussions, because you're both doing the same thing. You're at an equal level at that point. And I find that to be really beautiful. So I think that if we were to look at each other, put each other in a place where power dynamics are almost non-existent. And I say that because I don't think power dynamics can never just be non-existent. But if you were to not avoid, but just look at the person for who they are and have those conversations to encourage really good communication and active listening, I think some of these challenges could be addressed and we could see some change.
Thanks. Thank you. Oscar, do I see you? Do you have something to add?
Yeah, I would say for me, it's kind of in connection to what Amanda was saying, as well as what Jackson mentioned earlier about I would say that for me, well, like I mentioned a little bit about my background. Also in my background, there was a lot that was going on growing up. There was a lot of, violence, a lot of, arguments, not the best, living environment to go after school, before school situation, but that in turn, kind of put me in a position where I didn't want to trust anybody, where I didn't want, to, like what Amanda was saying, having connections. I didn't want to have those connections because not only was I told in my home, like, don't, don't make friends, people are not your friends, things like that. I would be fed these things, but in turn, I would go out in the world and I'd be like, I want to trust people. If I don't trust people, then I don't get help. If I don't get help, how am I going to do this alone? So it was a very, back and forth that I was going. And so I had to wrestle with the idea of trust and trust building. And so for me, I think that was my springboard into, branching off into other things that I probably wasn't comfortable in doing. And so for me, for people to grow, you also have to do things that you're not familiar with. You have to go into your stretch zone, as probably the foundation is very familiar with. Um, and so for me, I think that um, in my experience of trying to break down those walls, I've also learned that, breaking those walls down for other students is important as well, students from my background. And so because they're raised in different conditions that probably some of our peers that haven't had those challenges are experiencing. And so it's difficult to be able to, come up to a student and then say, oh, I don't need help, but that's their natural reaction that they're kind of, using. But you have to go past that and say, hey, you're missing these assignments, let's work on this together, so that has been, kind of the challenge that I've been working on, is trying to break down those walls of trust for students, having them be comfortable with me as well, because that has been the window of my opportunity to be able to, get them on track, or to get them to do their work, whatever it is, which is what we want our goal to be. And so for some people, they have their own approaches, but for me, I really try to focus on that approach, because those are the students I choose to work with, that I want to work with, that I want to impact, because those are the students that I come from, and so that for me has been my challenge, but also has been trust building and sort of relationship building, and really trying to break down those walls has been my solution to getting them to, try new things, to go out of their comfort zone, and to really, dig deep into their stretch zone to do stuff that they would have never thought they could do. And once they did it, they come back to me and they're like, what? I did XYZ? That's wild. So for me, if they would have never had that opportunity, if no one would have, trusted them and had that conversation with them, they would have probably moved on to the next situation or next opportunity, thinking the same thing that they think about themselves, and so that for me is the biggest change, is having people change their own perspective, change what they think they can know, what they think they can do, what they know they can do, and expanding that.
Thank you. So Jackson, do you have something to share? So what have you found as some of your unique abilities to address some of these challenges, and what you think is going to help us combine this community connection and the ability to address challenges?
Yeah, so my answer actually similar to both Oscar's and Amanda's. I would say for a lot of we said about expanding, like, your boundaries in your stretch zone. I've been like working on that, but also just for myself mostly. Because like going into this space, with a fellowship, and to be precise, like my place of work, the Yes Farm, right? They've been active for a long time, right? So like everyone there is experienced. All of their volunteers know, like they know a lot about the organization. I've been there for a while at least, right? So I'm the one who's coming in and trying to like adjust to what they're doing. And I think there I've just been like really working on stretching my own boundaries and doing things like I didn't think I could do before, because like I really didn't think I would be able to do this kind of work last year. I didn't think I'd be able to do the things I've been doing last year. Like even like even like weeks before I do them, I'm like, can I really do this, right? I've always been like I've always kind of had like a little bit of like trouble, just like get opening up my mind and like thinking I can do things that like I haven't really done before, right? So just this whole experience has really kind of pushed me to really, I guess, stretch. And I guess that's one of the skills I think will be helpful. And I think it's really a general skill to have, being able to like really like, it's like size up these new situations, to be able to slow down and say, okay, I can do this, like let me like think of a plan to get there. And it's been hard for me a lot of times just because a lot of this is new to me. It isn't necessarily my comfort zone. It's not like stuff I'm super experienced with, right? So I'm just kind of having to really learn and grow, while also making sure I can take care of myself as well and have the space I need, right? So it's just been a whole journey. I guess that's mostly been about me so far. Like, how can I apply that to solve some of the problems? I think the comfort zone thing kind of is a big part in that, because while doing that, I've been able to like connect more with like my coworkers on the farm, right, and also people I've met as well. Because I think people can tell when like someone's putting in an effort, right? And even when I've messed up, I think it's appreciated, like I've put myself out there and tried. So others are receptive to that, right? And so I've been able to build those connections, and also like admit when I'm wrong and learn from others, right? And so that's just probably the whole kind of idea of like swapping ideas, right? The whole thing I mentioned like a little bit ago. So yeah, I think that's the biggest skill I think could come in handy in like solving like these problems like that you mentioned earlier. Yeah, it's been my experience.
Nice. And it's such a nice illustration of the infinite paths to peace, because we're hearing that it's both about creating that space and being the one to create a space and put out a hand to invite people in, but it's also about learning how to trust and being able to lean on that trust and help other people trust then also. But it's also about taking risks, and it's about learning to be brave. So I'll be thinking about you, Jackson. My mug on my desk here says peace takes courage. And so there's a piece of that learning how to trust, or learning how to reach out, or thinking that you can do something, that those all learning how to take risks, that all takes a little bit of courage. So thank you all so much for your insights here. I think what we've got some time to do now, and I don't know if we already have questions in the chat. This is such a special space here to be able to hear from our Shinnyo Fellows. And so what this whole week for me, one of the things that I gain every week is I'm a teacher, I'm a faculty member, and I don't always, but I occasionally need a reminder to listen to the different perspectives that are coming up. I've been doing this work for a little while, and I am always awed, and I learn something new when I take a moment to listen to our students and what they're thinking about. So I think we can learn from both the questions for our Shinnyo Fellows and also what they'd like to share. And I know that some of you here have come with some questions for our fellows. So I'm going to open this up now. Let me check the chat and see. See what questions we have. I don't see any questions yet. Does somebody have is there a question that you have for
We have some questions. We have some hands
Oh, I
raised.
do see some hands
Sorry.
now. Let's see, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourselves, and let's see, we'll start with Jake and then
Jake,
go to
would you like to go?
Bernice.
I first just want to start by saying thank you, Amanda, Jackson, and Oscar, for everything you said and your time. It was very inspiring. And the question I have for you guys, each of you mentioned something along the lines of the stretch zone, the comfort zone, and well-being and self-care. And so what I wanted to ask you is, what the work that you've done so far, what has been the most rewarding aspect of it, and what has been the most challenging in regards to your own personal comfort zones and then also taking care of yourselves?
I guess I'll answer first. Most rewarding, I take great pride in the work MHCR is doing, and I'm very happy to be part of it. I appreciate how it is student ran, and I appreciate how everyone there has the same goal in mind. At Think Peace, at both, it feels nice to be surrounded by people who are very intentional with their actions and who are they're doing good work, but they also realize when people need a break, they need to take a break, and they're okay with that. I think and it's nice. Oh, I guess I've always been kind of worried when I go work at another organization after my time here with at MHCR and Think Peace, if they're gonna be intentional and take care of their employees the same way. The challenge I have faced, I think, is kind of finding my footing. The people who work at both organizations have been doing it for a while. And even though I've worked hard to get the fellowship and I've worked hard to get to where I'm at, I find that I do have this imposter syndrome when it comes to, do I really belong here? Oh my gosh, these people are so much smarter than me. Or, oh my gosh, this, and this. But it's like, wait a second, I'm admiring the people who I work with, and I'm thinking, yes, many of them are much older than I am. So they've had the time to experience certain things. I'm not there just yet, but I know I can be. It's not like I just got this fellowship and poof, it was all rainbows and butterflies. The work was put in to get to there. So I think for me, the most challenging part has been trying to remind myself, okay, no, you do belong. This is a good learning experience for you and where you are in your life, but you do belong here. So yes.
Thanks. I have you next up, Vernice.
I can talk a little bit. I think one of those rewarding parts for me was seeing this spring, because in spring it's when everything blooms, right? So over the winter, it was really dark all the time. We were down at the farm at like 4 p.m. and it would be pitch black, everything was underground, the ground was frozen, stuff like that. Wasn't too fun. But now it's all nice outside. It seemed like everything we planted sprout. It's really just beautiful and like symbolic in a way. Seeing the hard work like I put in, everyone else put in as well, kind of like sprout as well. And being able to see I think it was last week, or the week before that, being able to see people come in like volunteers and really appreciate that as well was really cool. I saw some students I recognized from campus who were just really excited to see the farm they'd never been before. So that was just really really cool, and reminded me at the work we're putting in to actually making a difference for others. And it's just always nice to see that. I think the hardest thing, kind of like Amanda mentioned actually, is just convincing myself that I deserve to be in the space and showing up as well, because again, this is all really new for me. So I had to convince myself a lot, that yeah, I deserve to be here. I can think and be a part of this spot. And that took actually a lot of time. I know for a lot of my fall quarter, I spent a lot of the time just not really knowing where my space was and how I should be a part of this. I was more of just doing what other people wanted to do instead of what I wanted to do, because I wasn't sure if my own ideas were fit for the spot. Even the one I would be okay, yeah, I should be here. I have a spot in this room. Talk about showing up as well, because the way I showed up conveyed that I felt like I was smaller than everyone else. I felt I didn't really have a spot in the space, even when I could verbally say it, right? So that took a lot of time, and a lot of getting used to everyone else as well, getting to know them, getting to trust them, right? And knowing that they actually really appreciate my ideas and appreciate what I bring. So with everyone else's help, really, I was kind of able to work on that a lot, and show up more in a way that I'm proud of, and in a way that puts out good ideas and puts out quality effort. So yeah, that's been my biggest adjustment.
Thank you, Jackson. Oscar?
Yeah, just to wrap us up for the next question, I would say for me it was I would say the biggest takeaway or rewarding experience has been working with the students. I think definitely like it, it is such a funny experience working with high school students that have acted like me, that look like me, that I look at them and I'm like, dang, I used to be like that in high school. Like, ooh, can't wait for them to grow up a little bit, you know? So just like stuff like that has been really rewarding to be able to like help see students where they're at, kind of like help guide them where they want to be. But also like that comes with, you know, working with students that have, you know, a difficult background is also a little difficult because, you know, they show up in different ways. You know, sometimes they'll like you know, slam a table or make a loud noise or something. And for me, that, you know, that triggers a little bit of what my past has. So that makes it challenging to be present in the moment. And so to resolve that, you know, it depends, but sometimes I'll have to like recenter, gives me like a few seconds to like, okay, I'm safe, I'm in my bearings, I'm in this, you know, in this space, I'm safe, I'm okay. So like having to bring myself back if it takes, you know, if it's too much, I'll take a step out, but it hasn't really been like that. You know, so that has been, you know, that has been a challenge to kind of you know, be around students that kind of trigger some of the things that I've grown up around. But in the end, I think that those are the students I want to work with, you know, and so that cannot be and will not be, you know, my sort of factor to move me away or to deter me or to remove me from the education system, because I was like that too, you know. So I get, you know, when those outcries come out, I get when you're frustrated with your life and, you know, you just want someone to hear you. So for me, that has been the biggest takeaway, but also a challenging moment in working with students. But yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So great question, Jake. Thank you for the question that you asked. So Bernice, what question do you have for our Shinnyo Fellows?
Hi. I really appreciate you guys all sharing your experiences and being kind of like vulnerable with us about how this also takes a toll on you as a human being, because I feel that it is important to understand that this can be a little stressful, and that's kind of inevitable, especially when you're like what Jackson was saying, like stepping outside of your comfort zone. And you know, you like what Oscar's saying, like some certain things can also trigger you. So I just really appreciate you guys sharing that. It's very insightful. My question is that with the peace building fellow, you know, or just being I don't want to say peace building fellow, Shinnyo-en Fellowship, you're working in the field of peace building, which can take on a lot of different situations and a lot of different topics. And I think it's kind of like intuitive to feel like you have to solve or help with all of them. How are you guys as fellows, you know, staying focused in your realm without getting so wrapped up in like all the other things that might come down, and I don't want to say stress you out, but make you feel like you owe attention? Like, how do you stay focused and how do you come to peace with you can't solve everything? So that's my question.
I can start off. I think for me, one of the things that I think about is that like we don't do it alone. And I think also like when, you know, you go to like what are you interested in? What are you hoping to do? What issues are you wanting to do? Bernice, what do you want to do?
Oh my gosh, the first thing that comes to the first thing that comes to mind is everything. But when but when I think about it, I really want to focus on helping people reintegrate back into society after experiencing, you know, homelessness and
Mm,
incarceration.
mhm,
And
mhm.
um that is something I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to help people who are experiencing homelessness or who just feel like they have no direction because of all of the things that they've been through. So that's really something I've always wanted to work on and help with.
Yeah, I think for me, I had a similar struggle in that like I wanted to work on all these different things and I had to do them all within like 10 years. For some reason that was in my head. And so like I think for me, I realized in the beginning of my um time in college and working with these issues, like you can't solve them all overnight. You can't solve them all by yourself. And so really aligning yourself in spaces that share your values, share your beliefs is really important because it's great for you to be the person in the room to advocate for these folks, but being in a room where they're all advocating for the same thing and they're pushing for that at a bigger scale is really, really a great way to have change. And so for me, I would say that like if you want to do that, go for that. And then I would say in terms of like wanting to do multiple things, I think also like paying attention to how things are connected. I personally believe everything is connected. So I think, when you are working with folks that are um, incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, or have experienced homelessness, that's not the only issue that you're going to focus on with that person. So you also have to focus, okay, well, integration doesn't just mean getting them a home. It also means building social skills. It also means how does it look like to get a job. It also means for formerly incarcerated folks, okay, well, not all jobs are accessible to me. What jobs can I apply for? So those are the things that you kind of have to navigate when you are working with folks like that. But that doesn't mean it's impossible, and that doesn't mean it's like far-fetched. It just means we have to find another way. And so for me, like that definitely would be like my kind of 2 cents is like, don't focus on like, you have to do one thing, I mean, you have to do all these things, during this certain period of time. Is also understanding like you can do it all, and you can do it all in one sector by like, addressing all these different connections. Like with like, if you want to focus on homelessness, well, you're doing homelessness, but that branches you off to doing, a food pantry, that branches you off to doing housing programs or whatever, and that continued to build, it continues to build your network, but it also continues to build what you think you can do. And like, you'll just be surprised once you're in those spaces, and I know you'll be in those spaces. Once you're in those spaces, you're gonna have all these realizations that will continue to refine and strengthen your passion, your motivation. And I feel like you having trust in yourself will be the answer that you're looking for. But yeah.
I can kind of add a little bit. So for me, like I'm an undergrad fellow, so I'm still a student as well. So my time is very I only have a little bit of time really to put into everything I want to do. And then part of that is just realizing like what you can do, but then also like I mentioned before, like knowing that like it's not all on you, and understanding like what everyone else can do as well, right? Like sometimes it's super easy to just think that you can handle a lot, right? Which you can, but like that you shouldn't put all that on yourself because it's a lot of responsibility, it's a lot of stress even. So just to realize that, like for me, if like there are other people like me, a lot of them, and if everyone helps them a little bit, then like no one has to do it all by themselves, right? And another thing for me is realizing as well that like if I get burnt out, that I can't help anyone, right? So like part of making this ever sustainable and continuing it is also like making sure myself that I am okay myself, right? So I take the breaks when I need to. I try to prioritize self-care. So that's how I do my best work. I used to try to like just like force my best work. I'm just gonna work hard. I'm just gonna put in all the hours and just keep on going. But also like in a position like this, I just can't really do that because when I'm in that mindset, I'm not as creative. I'm not as willing to like connect. I'm not as willing to like just be a full part of this 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 experience. Right? I'm just trying to just power through. It's almost like a tunnel vision mode, right? So to really be my best self and to like produce the best work, the best results, I need to take care of myself and also realize my own limits.
Thank you. Thank you for the three. So I've got another hand up, and just a quick note for any of you, please drop your questions. We have a few more minutes here, but I have Kurt up for what question do you have for our fellows here?
Oh, your mic is off.
Thank you for responding to that idea about mute. I so appreciate it. You're a quick learner. I don't know if you saw the note or not, but it's very impactful for people. I've been an educator since 1965. I haven't stopped. We've created the Peace Lab and the Peacemaker Circle and network and so many other things throughout my history. But the big question is right now, what I've heard is incredible dialogue using what you might call mastermind circle kind of a thing. We have incredible human beings on this call, just like we have a classroom. And when we interact and intra-act, it is so much more powerful. And because so much is the top-down education, the hierarchy. Actually, I should just I typed up the question in the chat, and I should make it quick and clear there for you. But to be able to have people really learn together, and that's one of the things, you can learn literacy and numeracy within 90 days with a particular practice that incorporates this using students to work with each other in the learning. Sunita Gandhi has formed it, and I could put in the chat that particular information if you're interested, because literacy and numeracy are so vital to be able to bring forth peace. Without being able to read and communicate and really have interaction and that deep listening, as you said with a teacher, we so often get caught up in our stuff. And I got to listen for so long. And it was beautiful. And we can develop as nature develops, every moment growing little by little, thinking, well, I just got this grant, or I'm a fellow, or whatever, and am I worth it? But you earned it. And when we think we can do something, we more likely do it. And this is the important aspect of, I believe, education. That idea of encourage, bring the heart forth. Without that heart, what is life about? And when we say about these vatalocos in the barrios of Los Angeles, you may see differences. Like I was raised in San Fernando with true vatalocos because they had a 50 caliber machine gun on the corner of the high school. My friends got hurt in some of those incidences. And we get to prevent that, not by seeing differences, but by seeing humans. My boys were raised at a time in South Africa, a short time when they were real young, but my wife is from South Africa. And they did not see color. They saw a human being, somebody who walked with a left foot and a right foot. That means they have to balance the left-leaning ideas, like so many of us are progressives, and the right, which is a little bit conservative because I want to live, and so on. We get to balance that in walking through life. How many of us even think about that? But I gave you a big challenge with a ruler, a 1 foot long ruler, a 1 foot long string, and hang a frickin', excuse my French, hammer with 1 inch on the table. And get students. Do you have a question to ask students that would prompt them to find the answer for the particular missing link that we haven't found for peace? What is missing? Is it the coagulation of all the groups? Is it the communication between all of our relations, including the trees outside and Mother Earth who feeds us? We have so much we get to learn. I'm still learning. I'm attending Humanity Rising Global Solutions Summit every day since its inception. And it has a variety of people like you and others from around the world looking for answers to economics, like global, like donut economics or circular economics or B corporations and all that. And then you go into education. How about education through nature? And so on and so forth. It's divine. We're excited about learning. So here, I'm done. Thank you very much. You're dynamite learners that I so love your smiles. Thank you. I'm glad I got to integrate this group, by the way. I didn't see another viejito here. That means little old man. And I called all my students viejitos, and they may have been 12 or 15 years old in Van Nuys Middle School. They said, no, you are. I said, wait a minute, when you were 3 years old, you looked up at somebody your age and you said they were old. Oh, that's Kruger's theory of relativity. Thank you. Keep smiling.
So I heard there was a piece, thank you, Kurt, and there's an interesting question embedded in that is what is the, and I see Maria has a question following up too. So we've got a couple minutes. So what's the, do you see missing links? Is there a piece missing? A piece of the piece?
Well, while the group thinks, I would just like to say that as someone who's observed the Shinnyo Fellows for a lot of years and listened to stories and reflections on what the experience has meant, I think I'm really in awe of how big the ambitions are of all the fellows and how you continue to show up every day and make progress towards some really lofty goals. And I know that at times it must feel challenging. And I remember being in the interview process and talking with incoming fellows who have like very big ideas on how to take the world on. And so I just hope that you'll carry that enthusiasm forward as best as you can while caring for yourself. So.
Nice. I'm gonna take the moderator's privilege here and recognize that I have a chance to ask one question. I'm aware that we've talked a lot about challenges, and you've talked about the possibilities of change and the very real differences that you're making in your communities. I'm curious if you could leave us with a few words that kind of feed us as we go out to continuing to do difficult work and see really hard things in the world. So I'm wondering what you could say what gives you hope. What have you seen as you've been working on your path this year that gives you hope? Because I think that hope is what feeds us to continue to do what can be very difficult and very frustrating work, and can also sometimes feel a little overwhelming. So what gives you hope? I see, Amanda, you've got something for us.
Yes. I have this saying that, I don't know, I thought about potentials and successes, and I came up with some sentence whenever it was, and I have it in the back of my head, and it's cultivating potential and celebrating the successes. And I find that I've been very fortunate enough to be in a lot of environments where that is the case, where we're pushing each other to be better individuals, be better at whatever job that we're doing. And we all come together to celebrate all the good things that happen. So I find that when that sort of environment, it fosters its own little community, its own little family. And you look at each other a bit differently because of the things that you're going through, whether it's at work. Maybe that work relationship has become a bit more as a personal friendship because of the things that you share and the things that you guys experience together. So yes, I would say you deserve to take up space. And that's also a reminder for myself. You deserve to take up space, but it's also be around people who will celebrate those things with you and who want to see you succeed.
Thank you. I like to celebrate. I've often said we get stuck on the activate and advocate and mediate and negotiate, and we forget to celebrate piece. So thank you for reminding us of that. Oscar, Jackson, what gives you hope?
I think for myself, what gives me hope is just like talking to people on like, that like, one-on-one or a small group level, just people I meet all the time, like, as part of the fellowship at the farm, just around everywhere, right? That really gives me hope. Just because like, just because like, we like look online or look on like, on the news or something, it always says like, so much is happening, we're all like, arguing, disagreeing with each other. There's so much like, there's just so much out there, so much negativity, right? But then like, talking to people, just, new people, people you don't even agree with. There's people you just see like, on your daily life. And if you talk to them, you'll realize that like those people, you can actually agree on a lot of things. You share a lot of similarities, more than you probably imagine, right? Like I've just talked to people and like, we can usually just like agree on really similar things, or we have something in common that we can just, connect over, right? Just that connection has really like, those connections are really valuable to me. It's because it reminds me, oh yeah, I should like, I should really just, take that into account more often. Stop like getting caught up in all like the doom and gloom, and more just like talk to people I know around me. Not to say that like, bad things aren't happening around the world. There's a lot going on right now. But I think if we all just got a chance to talk to each other on the individual level, without all like, the groups, all of the, the pretext and so much, history, right? I think, most people actually do want to help with like all the problems. Most people like, if you talk to them, might, be willing to just like, might be willing to like, offer you an idea too. So that's giving me a lot of hope that like maybe, if we can figure out a way to just like communicate with everyone, maybe we can solve some of these bigger issues.
Thank you, Jackson.
I would say for me, what gives me hope is, I think seeing the successes of my students, I think seeing the celebrations of my students also gives me hope. Like I mentioned, a lot of the students share the similar identities of mine. And so I always have such a great, I always get so happy. I feel so fulfilled when I see students succeeding in academic settings, because unfortunately these settings are not made for us. They're not made for us students to succeed. They're not set up for us to succeed. And so it creates a lot of challenges, more than the average student, to just even navigate these institutions, these educational institutions, to graduate from high school, to even go to higher ed. And so when I do see students of my background pursue those things, it gives me hope. I think it gives me hope that they're continuing the work that I want to continue. It gives me hope that they're fulfilling the dreams that they want to, that they're making their own path to peace that they feel is best for them. And I think just seeing them live that out is what gives me hope that they're, sticking to what they say, even beyond the time that I have with them. And I see students that I've worked with previously before, like that I've worked in like college, where I did, recruitment and retention work. I'll, catch them on campus, and they'll be like, oh, like, I remember you, like you were in this program that I did, and now I'm here at Berkeley because of that program. And I'm like, what? Like, little old me, like hoping you get to Berkeley. What? No, that's all you, So things like that just give me that hope into continuing on with the work that I do, because in turn they take the role on that I hopefully have done for them, which is to inspire them, and for them to inspire the folks that come after them, the folks that they are in connection with at their schools, in their communities, in their organizations. and ripples that, you know, that change into their own community, into their own respective circles, you know. And so for me, that that is what gives me hope, and that is what keeps me going.
Nice. Thank you so much. So to remind us to celebrate, reminding us to talk to people and to have those conversations that matter, and to look for the successes, the small ones, as well as the bigger ones. I am so grateful for Amanda, Jackson, and Oscar. Thank you for sharing your experience today, what you've brought. I know that some of you we've got a couple more sessions, so I'm trying to stick us close to the time. We're just a little bit over, but please, if you can, unmute yourselves. Let's give them a round of applause, or put your clapping hands up. Thank you so much for sharing what you have experienced during your fellowship and the insights that you've gained. I also want to thank, just as a last word, thank you so much for Ineka Tushita. Thank you, and for Jay Gibson. Thank you for setting up the space and the possibility and the time for students to be able to have these experiences. And thank you everyone for showing up. This has been a place to think about peace and to experience it a little bit for right now. So thank you so much.
This is Zooming Peace. We look through the eyes of love at the world and we say, Zoom peace. That's the peacemaker's salute. Yabba dabba doo, here we go, rocking and rolling through the future that we create.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for putting up with a viejito.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Adios.